Hi, welcome to London Lights. I'm your host, Dan Mailer, for the program of London Lights, where we speak to notable Londoners who have made a big mark on the local community and beyond. So tonight, I'm really pleased to have as my guest, Alfredo Caxaj, the founder of Sunfest. Alfredo, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
Thanks so much, Dan, for having me. And hello to everyone who is watching this show.
Before we get started, I just want to highlight some of your bio, your resume. So just bear with me for 1 second as I read this. Since arriving in Canada in 1985 during the height of political repression in his native Guatemala, Alfredo Caxaj has truly made a difference in his adopted community of London, Ontario. With an intuitive understanding of the power of the arts and of cultural diversity as the very essence of the human experience, his vision has remained tenacious and his organizing skills tireless. A familiar face to people around town, Alfredo has served for more than 2 decades as the executive and co-artistic director of the nonprofit Sunfest London Committee for the Cross-Cultural Arts Incorporated. Since debuting in July 1995, Sunfest, a free admission festival of music, dance, crafts, and cuisine from around the globe, has grown into Canada's premier celebration of world cultures, with an annual attendance of more than 210,000 per year. Voted by the Globe and Mail as one of the 100 best summer events in the country for several years going on now. The London Free Press has selected you, Alfredo, as one of the city's 150 most influential individuals, past or present. That says a lot. And last but not least, you were my neighbor in Pond Mills for a number of years.
Absolutely.
You've changed the face of London, my friend. Well done. But you've also got a very interesting story to tell. Before we talk about that story, how big is Sunfest really?
It is, this is a baby that we've seen growing and growing every year to the point that now it's really a big baby. It has grown so much. I mean, people always ask me this question, did you anticipate it to see this festival growing so much? And I said, I was dreaming about that. To see it becoming a reality, it's a different thing. And that's what I think is the greatest accomplishment, because I always believe on this. I'm a truly believer of the arts as an incredible vehicle of bringing people together. There's no question about that. Yeah. But I truly, seeing the festival now as what it is, the stature that it has, its profile, its reputation, not only national but international, it is truly incredible, unbelievable. It is obviously a lot of sacrifices have gone into this, because no question that we have to go through a lot of barriers, overcome so many barriers. And the first one was precisely, why do you want to do something like that in London, Ontario? That was 26 years ago. And, because always, London 26 years back was a totally different London.
Yeah, let me stop you there, okay? Mm-hmm. I want to get to that in a moment. But Sunfest has been incredibly successful. But I want to go back to the beginning, and you are the beginning. And I want to hear more about your story. You were in a tough spot in 1985. Tell us what was going on.
Yeah, well, as I said, I'm originally from Guatemala. When you review the history of Latin America, from the 50s to the late middle 90s, lots of the Latin American countries were under dictatorships. Ruled by dictatorships, and Guatemala was no exception. And we actually has one of the most brutal dictatorships that humanity has ever experienced. So pretty much every family in Guatemala was affected by the civil war. And when you live in a country like Guatemala, under those conditions, you only have 2 choices. One is to ignore completely what's going on, and just try to continue with your life, or become proactive. But becoming proactive also means taking a risk. And of course, as I said, we were facing the most brutal army, police forces during that time. And we became proactive. We were basically part of the social movement against this dictatorship. And as a result of that, our family was deeply affected. We lost two brothers in this struggle. In At that time, the Canadian embassy used to have people monitoring all the political cases in Guatemala. Ours was a very well-known political case, and they came over to us and offered us to take us out of the country. And from one day to another, we ended in London, Ontario.
Well, how
That
did London become your landing spot? Was that something that you knew all about and you said that's the place I want to go? What happened?
basically what happened was that they gave us some possibilities, some choices, including the bigger cities, but they said you because all the emotional circumstances or you're leaving the country right now, I, they recommended London as a small, not that big, quiet city. They thought that that was the best choice for us to come and to readjust again our lives. And that was the main reason why we ended in London, because they did said, we can send you to Toronto, to Vancouver, to Montreal, but I think you are really stressed out and emotionally affected by the loss of your relatives and the whole environment of living in a civil war. And they said London is the place. So what they didn't tell us really was that things were tough in London in another way. As you know, 35 years ago, this community was a totally different community and totally, made up of one color. And so when we came here, I mean, we just couldn't believe the day after we arrived, we were already facing our first experiences with racism and discrimination, and it was very tough. So, but that was basically the main reason that why we landed in London with my wife and my son, who was only 2 years old at that time. And yeah, so as you can imagine, I mean, just leaving the country from one day to another, ending in a different environment. I mean, it was November. I remember when we arrived at the airport in Toronto, there were some immigration officers waiting for us, and with boots, with coats, and all that kind of stuff. And we said, no, 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 we don't want to wear that. We have our stuff. I was wearing a light sweater like this, and and they really push us to put all those things on. And sure enough, when we went out of the airport, I think it was only -2, something like that. But for us, was oh, wow, this is wow, this is like being in a fridge. We had never experienced anything like that.
Right.
So
So lots of culture shock for you.
totally the language and all kinds
So
of
many things. It must have been so challenging.
absolutely.
But then you told me about a life-changing experience when they took you back to Toronto to a music festival. What happened?
Yeah, basically what happened is I one of my first jobs in here in London was working for an NGO, the Cross Cultural Learner Center. And I was working there in the area of development education, that's what we used to call. And through that, I was able to start making some interactions with people in the community. And one of them was this professor from the Faculty of Music at the university, Mr. Bob Hughes. He really was instrumental in all of this, in my changing my vision, my perspective. And for some reason, we got connected because of the music as well. I'm a professional musician as well. And then he invited me to go to Toronto with him to a kind of a special concert of 7 or 10 drummers from all over the world. And yeah, and believe me, when I went to that place and saw the drummers, I'm a percussionist myself, from Africa, from the Middle East, from Latin America. I just thought, wow, this is amazing. This is incredible. And I said to Mr. Hughes, uh, we should do something like this in London. We should try to do this kind of activities. And he said, yeah, I'll help you. He said,
Let me stop you first.
yes.
Because you said something to me the other day when we talked about this that really stuck with me. You traveled around Toronto on your way to the festival and you're looking around, seeing all these different faces and colors. And you said to your friend, Are these all tourists here in Toronto? You never dreamed that this could be Toronto, a multicultural city.
Absolutely, because obviously, in London at that time, there was not really that much of diversity. But the first time that a friend of ours took us to Toronto, we were absolutely shocked to see all the different colors of people, races, languages, because the mentality that we had in Guatemala at that time is that it was only the French and the English, the ones living in Canada, but we couldn't imagine, that diverse number of people, making Canada their home. So that was I think that was probably the most influential thing in how, in me changing my perspective around things. And really, what I wanted to do is because I was when you come to countries like this, then you could, two things could happen. One is that you really become active in the social, political, and cultural life of the community, or you just keep yourself isolated in your own island. And that happened with a lot of people. A lot of people just stay in their own islands. They don't really integrate as they should. And I just thought that's an incredible opportunity for me to interact with the rest of the community, people from all over the world. And I thought, my first thought was, it could be nice to do something uh, through the arts that could really reflect this diversity that we had in this country. And that's exactly what happened. So we started doing a small concert series, stuff like that, lectures, visual art exhibits with first generation Canadians. So we saw the incredible reaction of people in the positive, because people had never experienced, before a Japanese taiko drumming or a salsa band. I had my own salsa band, that kind of stuff. And that's when the idea came, really say, we should expand this into a summer music
That,
festival.
that's a good point for us to take a break. I
Yeah.
want to get into the birth of Sunfest here in just a moment, but we have to take a commercial break. Just hang on. We'll be back with more conversation with our guest, Alfredo Caxaj, the founder of Sunfest, in just a couple minutes. Stay tuned. We're back now with Alfredo Caxaj, the founder of Sunfest. And Alfredo, you were just getting to the point in your life story where you had come up with this idea and this vision for what was to become Sunfest. What kind of reaction did you get to this vision when you started sharing it with people? Did everyone jump on board, or did some people jump off the train?
Well, we used to have this small committee that were putting together these small concerts and stuff like that, while I'm still working at the Cross Cultural Learning Center. And that's when, as I said before, I saw the positive reaction of people, and I said, this could be fantastic to expand it into a summer music festival, because at that time there was only one thing happening in London. It was home county. And I noticed that home county wasn't really reflecting at all, or presenting music from all other parts of the world. It was very, specific in terms of demographics and the type of music that they presented. Nothing wrong with it. I just thought that, well, if that exists, why not we create an alternative to that, and we bring the other side of the world, to London, Ontario. And I was getting so excited, and the rest of my committee said, okay, if you want to do that, I think you better find other people, because this is too much for us. That will never happen in London, blah blah blah. And I said, and basically everyone left, and I was left alone. And I said, well, okay, I have to find some other people who can help me. I was lucky to find a few more people who truly believe in this vision and this idea, and that's how we started things. We planned to do the first festival in 1994. I remember Wayne Morningstar from Parks and Recreation at that time. He was so excited about bringing a new thing into London. He said, "You have the park. Whichever time, whichever date you need it, we'll give you the park, because it's amazing, exciting." And anyway, 1994, we couldn't put together the financial resources, and said, well, let's postpone it. Let's wait one more year until we get a good number of resources so that we can come up with something good, something strong, something. Because for me, the most important thing was to establish the festival as an annual celebration. But we wanted to start in a very professional way, and I said, yeah, let's better wait, and that's what happened. So it doesn't necessarily mean then that starting in 1995 we had a huge amount of resources. Not at all. It was a very tiny budget, with 10, 15 vendors, uh, three stages, 12 to 15 bands, something like that. But I said we want to do something nice and classy, and to establish the festival. That's the most important thing, and that's exactly what happened. People got so impressed by the first edition that basically, said, this is nice. Even when we actually came out with our logo, the big sun,
Yeah.
and we had these posters, we had lawyers' offices, we have medical offices asking for a copy of the poster because it was kind of a sensational thing that something like that was happening in London. And the reason that we chose the sun was because the sun is really a universal symbol. It's a symbol that has an incredible representation in every culture of the whole world. And that's exactly why we call it Sunfest. That's what it was. So 1995, we did it. For several years, I was watching the weather for that particular weekend, and it said it never rains in this weekend. It never rains. And unfortunately, the first year, it rained for a
Oh,
day and a half. No, this
I can-
cannot be happening. But anyway, the extra day and a half that we did was more than enough for people to say, wow, this is cool. This is amazing. So I
So
would say that,
can I stop you there?
sure.
Because uh, there were the naysayers when you first started sharing the idea. They said something like this will not work in London. London's too conservative. They don't want. They'll never embrace some idea like this. But what was the experience?
Well, basically, I think I was absolutely surprised by people, the reaction. And I think what it is done is that this is, you know, sometimes people think that programs or events like this will never work in communities if the communities are not culturally diverse. But I think actually, it works in the opposite way. I truly believe that when people have the experience to be exposed to something new and fresh, that's exactly what is going to work, regardless of your cultural background, your social economic status. And that's exactly what happened. People
Fantastic.
truly embrace this idea, the community. Obviously, I mean, it took several years to build and build, but that was the reaction of people. And that's always what I'm telling people when I invited to do panel discussions or another conference across the country or all over the world. Uh, I always said, that London, Ontario always has been used as a marketing place, as a testing place. I know we had the first McDonald's in Canada, and that was happening here, took place here in London. Insurance companies, other things that have, grown out of London because London was used as a test marketing for all these things. And just say, if Sunfest worked in London, it can work everywhere else.
Sure.
And that's exactly what happened.
No, your experience had been very difficult growing up with the political repression and the murders and the assassinations and just a terrible environment. But you must have really been a believer in music, that music could bring people together. Music can be this great unifying force for good. Is that kind of the vision that you had with Sunfest? Tell me about
Absolutely. From the moment that we established the festival, it was not just another event at the park. It was a festival with a mandate, with a vision, with a perspective of bringing the whole community together. And why? Because, when we talk about politics and religion, those things always divide us. Always, people go in different directions. But when it comes to arts, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. You know, people actually come together. It's a powerful vehicle, in bringing people together. I'm so a strong believer on that, and it has been proven because if I take, for example, my own community, the Latin American community, we are, you know, we have so many similarities, but also we have so many differences. And one of those things are, the religion and politics. But the thing is that every time that the festival is on, you see all those people coming, regardless of their political or religious affiliation, they come. And that's exactly what happened with everyone else. The beautiful thing about the festival is that, it's not a festival just specifically, you know, directed to one particular group or demographic group. It's for everyone. And that's when you see people of different social, economic status at the festival, cultural backgrounds, races, languages. That's the beauty of the festival. And I think that's where we have made a big difference in this community, to the point that we have received so many awards and recognitions, not too much in the area of arts, but for building race relations in this community, because
Yeah.
that's what it is. Imagine if Sunfest was like, I mean, the whole world was like Sunfest, where everyone comes, have a fantastic time, enjoy the company of everyone. And, that would be the ideal world, where we all of us live and enjoy life. But that's exactly what we try to do, at least that particular space during the year, because that's one of the most expected weekends of the year, not only for Londoners now, but 25% of people now who come to London to Sunfest are tourists,
Mm,
and that makes an incredible economic impact in the city. Uh,
sure.
we did a study last year, and we were absolutely blown away by all the results. Millions of dollars bringing into the economy of London. But I think I always said that we're so proud of the numbers of people that we bring. We're so proud of the artistic quality that we have, because we truly bring iconic artists from all over the world. But the most amazing thing is the social impact that the festival has. That's the most beautiful. And that's what I truly believe, that a lot of festivals lose their vision, a lot of, because they are just interested in how many tickets we can sell, and all those monetary things, but they never think about how is the impact in the community, how are we affecting the lives of people. We see now a full generation of a new generation, growing with the festival. It's 26 years now that all these people now. I was in Montreal once attending a conference, and there is this guy waiting for the elevator with myself, and he looked at my tag name and said, "Are you Alfredo?" "Yeah, I'm Alfredo." "Are you from London?" "Yeah, I'm from London." "Are you with Sunfest?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Can I shake your hand?" This guy was about 19, 20 years old. And I said, "Sure, why?" "I want to thank you," he said, "because when I went to Sanders School, I remember you bringing all those groups from Africa, the Middle East, okay, and of course Sunfest, to the point that I moved closer to Victoria Park, because Sunfest is my favorite festival, period. It has changed my life." And this boy was attending an indie pop rock conference at the same time in Montreal. But here it is, so intriguing into world culture, And this is exactly, it's difficult to see, we change the lives of these or those other people, but we know that the impact has been made.
I love your story. And I know Londoners are just going to be thrilled to hear more about your story here and your background. London is a better place because of what you've accomplished, what you've done, and how you've had this vision and you've brought it to life. But it's also a very inspiring story for new immigrants that come to this city. And there's no question that all of them experience some type of obstacle to hold them back or hold them down. And as you say, there's two choices people can have. They can insulate into their little communities and not interact, or they can say, look, I'm not going to let this hold me back. I'm going to tackle this challenge and I'm going to overcome it. And truly, you've done that, and you are an incredible inspiration to me, and I think so many other Londoners. It was a pleasure having you as a neighbor. It was also a pleasure having you on this program to tell your story. We've only got a minute or so left. Is there a message you have for others in the community that come from another country and they're maybe struggling or have challenges. What's your message to them?
I would say to them, be strong, be perseverant, be persistent, believe in what you do, and interact and be part of the social dynamics of your community. That's the only way that you will be able to open new doors to you. This is a country that is offering all kinds of opportunities, but we really have to be perseverant on that.
Fantastic. It's a fantastic message. It's been a fantastic time here with you today during this interview. Keep up the great work. We want to see a lot more Sunfest and maybe a baby Sunfest or whatever else comes out of it. It's been great, and you've done a great job. We're proud of you as Londoners, and we're proud to have you in the community. So be strong, carry on, and thanks for doing this interview today. Viewers, come back to our next episode of London Lights coming down the road next week or two, and we'll have some more great discussion with great guests like Alfredo Caxaj of Sunfest. Take care.